Last year, BMW sold nearly 2.5 million cars. Ferrari sold fewer than 14,000. That is a difference of almost 180 times. Now guess which of those two companies is worth more? Ferrari. To earn what Ferrari makes on one car, BMW must sell 58. 58 against one. But the stranger part is what happened over the last 5 years. BMW went from the best numbers in its history to a cautious forecast, and the cars never got worse. Most people think a car maker earns money by selling cars. Formally, yes. Economically, almost no. Last year, the company took in around 133 billion euros. What stayed behind was roughly 7.5 billion. Out of every 100 euros entering the company, about 5 remain. Look only at the car business and the margin is barely 5%. 5% on a premium brand, on machines that cost as much as an apartment. So where do those 5 points actually come from? 3 places. None of them is the car itself. First, the options list. A base car earns almost nothing. The money is in packages, leather, lighting, electronics. Margins there are several times higher than on the vehicle. That is why the dealer walks you so carefully to that page. Second, the mix. Not every car is equal. Last year, the company sold a record number of its performance models. Those, plus the ultra-luxury brand and large SUVs, pull the average upward. The cheap models exist to keep the factories full. Third, and this is the one nobody talks about, there is a bank inside the car company. Loans, leasing, insurance, subscriptions. Its revenue is close to 40 billion euros a year. That is larger than many entire car companies. Watch what happens to one single vehicle. You buy it and the company earns its few percent. You finance it and it earns interest for years. You service it and parts carry a better margin than the car. The lease ends and the same car is sold a second time. One car, monetized again and again. But this model hides a risk almost nobody sees. When a car goes out on lease, the company makes a promise. In 3 years, it says, this vehicle will still be worth this much. If the used market falls, the customer does not pay the difference. The manufacturer does. On cars that drove away 3 years ago. Electric vehicles have lost value faster than the forecasts, so the bill arrives late and it arrives at the factory. Now let us look at what happened to all this money. Early in this decade, the world ran out of microchips. Factories stopped. Cars were scarce. It looked like a disaster. Instead, something strange happened. Manufacturers simply stopped discounting. Why discount when the waiting list runs a year long? Fewer cars, but each one richer and sold at full price. The industry discovered that scarcity pays better than abundance. Margins climbed to levels nobody had planned for. Then came the best year of all. The company took control of its Chinese joint venture. It paid several billion euros for the majority stake. The accounting gain from the revaluation was larger still. One of the smartest moves of the decade. By that year, everything was working at once. Pre-tax profit reached around 11% of revenue. The car division was close to 9% margin. China was buying. Scarcity was holding prices up. The company looked untouchable. And that was the top. The next year, the car margin fell from nearly 9% to just over 6%. The year after that, to a little above 5%. Revenue dropped from 142 billion to 133. The guidance for this year is 4 to 6%. In 2 years, the margin roughly halved. And here is the point of this whole video. The cars did not get worse. Same factories, same engineers, same badge. What changed was the economics around them. 4 forces did the damage. The first is China. For years, China was the goldmine of German luxury. A German car there meant status. Now sales are falling by double digits. And the loss is not about metal or engines. It is about screens, software, and the feeling of being modern. Premium is not a material, it is a perception. The second force is borders. The largest plant in the world is not in Germany. More than half of what it builds is exported. Then tariffs arrive. A model built over 30 years becomes more expensive overnight. Last year, tariffs cost roughly 1.5 points of margin. When your whole margin is 5 points, that is nearly a third of the profit. Surrendered to something you do not control. The third force is suppliers. One faulty braking component forced a profit warning. More than 1.5 million cars were affected. The share price fell 8% in a day. At 5% margin, you have no cushion at all. So suppose the profit is earned. Who keeps it? Almost nobody, you would expect. The company spent around 8 billion on research and development, and roughly 7 billion more on plants and equipment. Add those together, it invests more into the future than it earns in the present. That is not an anomaly. That is the industry. A car reaching showrooms in 5 years is paid for with today's money. Of what remains, about a third goes out as dividends. Roughly half the voting power belongs to a single family. In the 90s, the company decided it was too small. It bought a struggling British carmaker. 6 years of losses followed. The press called it the English patient. In the end, it was sold for £10. Not 10 million, £10. That year, with record sales, the group posted a huge loss. Record sales and a loss. Outside, a beautiful legend everyone believes. Inside, arithmetic far thinner and far more ruthless than you were told.